Welcome to the Debatable podcast. Picture this scenario. It is 1 a.m.
Okay.
You are lying in bed, the room is pitch dark, and the only light is the blue glow of your phone. You open Instagram or TikTok, and suddenly it feels like everyone your age is already rich.
That is just social media illusion.
It is a documentary of financial ruin. You see the European vacations, the brand new cars, the unboxings of designer clothes, people eating out every single night. The visual evidence is completely overwhelming. We are looking at a topic today that defines a generation, which is the financial behavior of Generation Z.
Right. And you're looking at it completely backwards.
The core question we're debating is whether this generation is financially ruining itself through reckless digital consumerism or if they are rationally adapting to a broken economy. And I take the position that Gen Z is trapping themselves in a dangerous cycle of reckless consumption and debt, driven entirely by digital vanity and predatory platforms.
And my position is that you are wildly misinterpreting pure survival tactics as hedonism. You are completely ignoring how this generation is actually utilizing new digital tools to navigate and push back against a fundamentally unaffordable macroeconomic reality.
To really understand my position, we have to look at the psychology of what is actually happening on these platforms. We are looking at a generation that has become enslaved to what we call flex culture.
Flex culture is a myth.
It is not a myth. Look at the raw confessions coming out of anonymous platforms like Reddit. You have young adults openly admitting they're buying clothes they don't need, taking trips they absolutely cannot afford for the sole purpose of looking successful online.
You're cherry-picking Reddit threads to attack an entire generation.
I am looking at a systemic issue. They put it all on credit, assuming they will just figure it out later. If we look at this through the lens of Islamic economic ethics, which the source material uses as a really fascinating framework for analyzing consumption, this behavior is the literal definition of riyah,
Oh, here we go.
which translates to showing off, and israf, which is wasteful, extravagant spending. They have traded traditional financial stability and moderation for pure, stupid hedonism.
All in its stupid hedonism proves you are completely out of touch with reality. You are blaming the victims of a macroeconomic nightmare.
They are victims of their own greed.
No, they are surviving. Let's look at the actual context here. Gen Z did not ruin the economy. They inherited the fallout of a global pandemic, endless geopolitical instability, and a severe cost of living crisis.
None of that justifies reckless spending.
When you look at skyrocketing housing costs, the traditional milestones of adulthood, like buying a house or retiring comfortably, those feel completely out of reach for a 22-year-old today.
So, because they can't buy a house, they buy a $1,000 pair of sneakers? Help me understand the logic there. Because that sounds like madness.
Yes, exactly. But not for the reason you think. What you are calling stupid hedonism is actually a highly documented psychological response known as doom spending.
Do spending. You just put a trendy label on bad habits.
It is a psychological fact. When a person feels hopeless about their long-term financial future, they spend money in the short term to self-soothe. And psychologically speaking, it actually works.
It works to put them in debt?
The AJSSR study on emerging adulthood specifically looked at this exact mechanism. They proved that for 18 to 25-year-olds, online retail therapy genuinely and effectively reduces real anxiety and depression.
Wait, stop right there. Are you seriously arguing that buying designer clothes is a valid medical treatment for clinical anxiety?
I am explaining the mechanism of nervous system regulation. When the macroeconomic environment is constantly triggering a stress response, pumping cortisol into your system because you don't know how you'll ever afford a stable life, buying a small, attainable luxury provides an immediate dopamine hit.
That dopamine hit that they have to pay back with interest.
That dopamine briefly overrides the stress. They are buying things to regulate their nervous systems in a highly stressful world, not just to show off for strangers on the internet, like you claim.
That psychological framing is a complete cop-out. You cannot regulate your nervous system with money you do not actually have. You are just trading a temporary psychological crisis for a permanent financial one.
It is not a permanent crisis. It is a coping mechanism.
The dopamine wears off, and then the bill arrives. Which brings us to exactly how they are paying for this ridiculous self-soothing.
I am talking about the buy now, pay later disaster. Platforms like Zest Money and Lazy Pay.
I wouldn't call them a disaster at all. They are crucial financial tools.
They are traps. Let's break down exactly how these platforms function. They exploit a well-documented neurological flaw called present bias.
Present bias is a natural human trait. It doesn't make the tool evil.
It does when the tool weaponizes it. Present bias is the human brain's tendency to overvalue immediate rewards while heavily discounting future risks. The entire user interface of a buy now, pay later app is engineered to remove the friction of spending.
It is engineered for accessibility.
No, when you buy something with cash, you feel the physical loss of the money. BNPL decouples the joy of acquisition from the pain of payment. It tricks young people into prioritizing the current moment over long-term consequences, and the statistics from the material are brutal.
You are just going to twist the statistics to fit your narrative.
Let me give you the hard numbers. 47% of young Indian BNPL users completely lose track of what they owe.
Because the traditional education system.
Think about that mechanism. The apps make it so frictionless to borrow that nearly half of users don't even know their own debt load. 32% miss payments, and 30 to 40% of young users have multiple debts running at the exact same time. It is a debt spiral disguised as convenience.
Calling BNPL a predatory trap is a massive lie. You have to ask why they are using these tools in the first place.
Because they want things they can't afford.
Because BNPL is a vital mechanism for accessibility in an economy that has systematically priced young people out. You keep focusing on designer clothes and European vacations, but the data paints a very different picture.
The data says they are defaulting.
Gen Z is largely using BNPL to buy things they actually need to function in modern society. Laptops for university, online courses for career advancement, reliable electronics, things they simply can't afford up front.
If they are buying necessities, why are 32% of them missing payments? Tell me that. If it's such a rational tool for survival, why the massive default rate?
Because traditional credit systems lock them out. Traditional credit cards are the real predators here. They demand high interest rates and stringent credit histories that an 18-year-old simply does not possess.
So they jump into a different debt trap?
BNPL offers interest-free installments if you pay on time. Now, to answer your question about why 32% are missing payments, that is not because the BNPL tool itself is evil. It is because the surrounding system, specifically schools, universities, and parents, has completely failed to teach them basic budgeting and cash flow management.
Blaming schools is a pathetic excuse. Just because a high school didn't hold their hand doesn't mean they have to turn to TikTok scammers for advice.
It is a completely rational response to being ignored by traditional institutions.
It is not rational when the information is a total fraud. Let's look at the hard facts from the Debatable study in the source material. It found that following financial influencers, finfluencers, actually has a negative impact on a young person's financial knowledge.
That is a fundamental misreading of the digital shift.
It's right there in the data. The more financial content these kids watch on social media, the less they actually understand about finance.
That study captures a very specific, isolated segment. It doesn't represent the whole picture.
It represents the entire ecosystem. And it gets worse when you look at the incentives. The Newsweek data shows that only 20% of these influencers even bother to disclose if they are getting paid to promote financial products.
There are bad actors in every industry.
They aren't just bad actors, they are con artists. Let's walk through how these scams actually operate, like the crypto pump and dumps mentioned in the material.
Crypto is a fringe issue.
It is mainstream on TikTok. An influencer buys a cheap, worthless crypto token. They hype it up to their millions of followers, promising guaranteed returns. The followers buy in, which pumps the price up. Then the influencer quietly sells all their holdings at the peak.
Like Wall Street doesn't do the exact same thing?
The token drops 80% in value the moment the creator cashes out. These aren't educators filling the gap left by high schools. They are predators, and they are using gullible kids as exit liquidity.
Those crypto guys are anomalies. You are taking the absolute worst actors in a highly unregulated space and using them to smear a massive, positive systemic shift.
Positive? There is nothing positive about getting scammed.
You mentioned the Ahmedabad study, but you conveniently ignored the Pune study. That study provides a critical counter perspective. It shows that 71% of Gen Z uses YouTube to learn about investing.
Yes, they use it, and what they are learning is dangerous garbage.
Think about why they have to use it. Traditional finance intentionally built walls to keep young working class people out. The barrier to entry to even speak to a real financial advisor is massive wealth. High minimum balances, jargon-heavy paperwork, gated access.
So they take advice from a 20-year-old on YouTube?
Where else are they supposed to go? Finfluencers are actively democratizing financial information. Good creators, and there are thousands of them, are taking highly complex, intentionally opaque concepts like mutual funds, equity, and market trends, and translating them into a language young people actually understand.
They are translating it into gambling.
They are building communities for people who have zero access to Wall Street insiders. If you throw out the entire digital financial ecosystem because of a few crypto scammers, you're severing the only financial lifeline this generation has.
I completely reject the idea that it is a lifeline. It is an anchor pulling them underwater. Look at the underlying mechanism of these platforms. TikTok and YouTube run on algorithms designed to maximize engagement, right?
They prioritize watch time, yes.
Which means they have to be engaging.
Exactly. And what keeps a viewer watching? It isn't a 10-minute video explaining the slow compounding benefits of a low-risk index fund. That is boring.
Boring to you, maybe. The algorithm inherently suppresses prudent financial advice because it isn't flashy. Instead, it pushes sensationalism. It rewards the creator screaming that you can turn $100 into $10,000 by Friday.
You are vastly underestimating Gen Z's media literacy.
The constant stream of algorithms pushing products, side hustles, and miracle investments leads to the exact same psychological place: endless, wasteful consumerism.
You call it the democratization of finance. I call it the democratization of debt. They are trapped in a cycle of wanting more, buying more, and borrowing more to fund it.
The democratization of debt is a catchy soundbite, but it completely ignores the massive cultural shift happening right in front of you. You're operating on the ridiculous assumption that Gen Z is just passively absorbing consumerist programming.
They are. The numbers prove it. They aren't. They are actually leading a massive ethical rebellion against it.
An ethical rebellion on TikTok? Give me a break.
Yes, absolutely. Have you even looked at the underconsumption core trend?
I have, and it is a complete joke.
For years, the internet was dominated by haul culture, influencers buying 50 fast fashion outfits and throwing them on a bed. Millions of Gen Z kids are now fundamentally rejecting that.
Rejecting it by making new videos about it.
They are posting anti-hauls where they explicitly talk about what they refuse to buy. They are filming themselves repairing old clothes, scraping the bottom of makeup bottles to use up every last drop of product, and aggressively calling out brands that promote overconsumption.
You think a TikTok trend is a macroeconomic shift? That's laughable.
The data backs it up. It isn't just a hashtag. Remember the Islamic consumption study you referenced earlier to attack them?
I remember it perfectly. Riyah and Israf.
Right, you brought up Riyah and Israf to accuse them of wastefulness. But that very same study found that Gen Z is actually driving a massive boom in the halal lifestyle, ethical branding, and sustainable products.
They are driving a boom in aesthetics, not ethics.
They are actively seeking moderation. They are demanding moral spending and corporate responsibility from the brands they buy from. They are doing the hard work of fixing the hyper-consumerism that your generation normalized.
Underconsumption core is a total illusion. Let's look at the deep criticism of this trend from Mashable and Wikipedia outlined in the material. They hit the nail on the head. This isn't a fundamental ethical rebellion. It is poverty cosplay.
Poverty cosplay. That is incredibly dismissive and frankly offensive.
It is the truth. Let's define the mechanism of what is actually happening. Poverty cosplay is when people adopt the visual markers of being frugal or working class purely as a fashion statement.
That is not what they are doing.
It is exactly what they are doing. They aren't rejecting consumerism, they are just buying a specific, highly curated set of humble things to fit a brand new internet aesthetic. They buy perfectly matching minimalist storage jars to prove how little they own.
You are just looking for reasons to hate them.
They buy expensive vintage clothes to look like they aren't participating in fast fashion. It is entirely performative.
So you're saying their motivation invalidates the positive action? That makes no sense.
I'm saying the underlying mechanism hasn't changed at all. They are turning frugality into a performance for social validation. They are still seeking dopamine through likes and views.
You are demanding absolute perfection from them.
It is exactly the same psychological loop as the flex culture I described earlier, just wearing a different costume. Today, the aesthetic is humble underconsumption. Next month, the algorithm will shift, and it will be something else. It is still vanity.
I simply cannot accept that framing. It is a completely unwinnable standard. You cannot complain about Gen Z being reckless, hedonistic spenders in one breath and then ruthlessly mock them when they actively promote frugality in the next.
I am mocking the fact that it is a superficial digital performance rather than actual financial discipline.
Think about how change actually happens in a digital society. Making frugality cool is the smartest, most effective way to combat the exact hyper-consumerism you were just attacking.
By buying more stuff to look frugal?
If this generation has figured out a way to use that same digital language, trends, aesthetics, and viral videos to make repairing clothes and rejecting fast fashion popular, why would you attack the method? That is a massive win for the economy and the environment.
It's a win for their follower count.
You are demanding absolute, philosophical perfection from a generation that is just trying to survive. They are using the only tools they have to rewrite the rules of consumption.
They are not rewriting any rules. They are just playing a different game on the exact same sinking ship. Look at the totality of what we have discussed today.
I am looking at it.
We are watching a generation live out a very dangerous financial contradiction. They are drowning in buy now, pay later debt because the platforms are engineered to exploit their present bias.
That is completely...
Let me finish. They are taking terrible, high-risk advice from financial influencers who use them to pump and dump worthless assets. And rather than actually addressing the root of the problem, which is a fundamental lack of financial discipline, they throw a trendy, aesthetic filter of ethical underconsumption over their habits to pretend they hold the moral high ground.
That is your extremely biased summary.
It is reckless, it relies entirely on social validation, and mathematically, it is going to ruin them.
Your summary relies on a profound pessimism that completely ignores the reality of the world they were handed. Gen Z is not living a lie. They are surviving a crisis.
A crisis they are funding on installment plans.
They are utilizing brand new digital tools like BNPL to bypass an exclusionary, predatory traditional credit system so they can afford basic necessities. They are turning to digital communities to educate themselves because traditional schools and financial institutions abandon them entirely.
And getting scammed in the process.
And they are using the power of digital trends to demand ethical, sustainable brands while actively making frugality culturally relevant. They aren't ruining themselves. They are redefining what it means to cope and thrive in an economy that was broken long before they got here.
It is 1 a.m. The screen is still glowing, and the bill is absolutely going to come due.